All right, let's do it live on a First Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Bo. He is the Great Z. A gorgeous day in the Buckeye State, buddy. A couple more of these, right? And then winter's
nice
here.
To see it. And then winter is coming, this weekend. But it looks like the snow is going to hold off, so that's exciting. And, it is a nice day here. And it's good to be back like a Wednesday, football week again.
A what?
First Friday.
Yeah.
Football week again. Fall. It's great. Like, I love this. I feel like now we're back. The bye week. And it stunk. In some ways, it was great because we were able to carry that momentum and that win for 2 weeks. But it's good to get back to the business and get downstairs, see all the guys, and get excited about an opportunity against a very good, as I get into my preparation for the game on Sunday, a very good, very explosive, very fun Miami team. But I like that. I like that on a First Friday.
Yeah, I agree. I think it. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week. I found that without our game to pay attention to. Juxtapose of no Ravens, you pay attention to your enemies, right? So no Ravens on Sunday, no Steelers on Sunday, and then the Bengals game was done a quarter and a half into it.
Yep.
So I found that the football was lacking a little bit this weekend. It's back in full force this weekend with us back and a big game down in Miami for a preview. Let's head to the podium. Here's Coach Stefanski.
6-3, won their last three. They're operating at a high level on all three sides of the ball. They're well coached. I know a bunch of their coaches. They do a great job. And then I think they're doing a nice job. Obviously, offensively, quarterback's playing at a very high level. They're dangerous on the perimeter. They're doing a nice job scoring a bunch of points. Defensively, really impressed with their defense in total. The front is big and stout and long. They can rush the passer. They can stop the run. In the back end, they have playmakers. With Howard being as good as it gets in the NFL. Really, really good player. So, and then special teams, really well coached. Coach Crossman coaching the teams does a nice job. So quite the challenge going on the road, playing a good football team. So we got to have a really good work week, and that starts really today. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Is Denzel fully cleared?
I don't know that he's fully cleared yet, but again, he's hitting all the benchmarks right now.
Monday okay?
Yes.
He's not practicing today, we're told. What is his situation?
Rehabbing, working through the injury.
Tyreek Hill is one of those faster than fast guys. What kind of problems does he create, obviously, throughout your defense?
Yeah, I think they're doing a nice job utilizing his speed. He's got world-class speed, can make plays down the field, tracking the football, can get the ball in his hands early and let him go. We've played him a couple times in Kansas City, so that speed, it's real. And then just the way they use him with motion, it's almost like Canadian football where he's got a full running start at the snap. So he gets into your defensive secondary very quickly. Quarterback does a nice job of getting him the ball in areas that he can catch and pluck and go.
How do you try to combat that?
Well, I mean, every team goes into it trying to slow him down. It's difficult. There's not one thing that you can do to say, hey, we're going to stop him by doing this. It's just he's good and they got other players that can hurt you. So you try to give them a couple different looks. It might be one plan on this play and one plan on another play, and try and just be sound in what you're doing. But he's a good player. You're just trying to limit the big explosives.
Harder is it when you have a guy like Waddle on the other side, so you can't put all your attention on him?
Yeah, I think that's really that's a big part of that. Waddle's a really, really good young player in his own right, different, but fast and dynamic with the ball in his hands. So they complement each other in that way, and again, it's a challenge for our defense.
Seem to like to attack the middle of the field, the middle of the defense. Just what type of pressure is that put on that side of the ball for you?
Yeah, I think that they do a really nice job. Quarterback works the middle of the field. Their route concepts are around that middle of the field, and when you do that, you're not going to run out of the grass. You're going to not use the sideline, sometimes to your advantage as a defense. Well, when you work the middle of the field, you work in between the numbers. You can catch and turn and get yak. So they can do it from a shorter pass attack. They can do it from a intermediate and deep pass attack, but so much of it comes back to defensively being true to your rules, being true in your zones, in your mans, and then ultimately when in position to make a play, you got to make a play.
You said they do a great job on the perimeter. Is that how they set it up?
I guess when I say perimeter, I'm saying they're receivers, but their receivers can make plays all over the field. To Darryl's point, I mean, they can throw just go routes and that type of thing. They can also, off of some of their RPOs, get the ball in their receivers' hands, really using all 53 in the third of the field.
Is of an immediate impact is Bradley Chubb made on their defense?
Really good player. Joe Woods knows him well, so speaks very highly of him. We obviously did a lot of study on him back to his Denver time, just one game to watch there in Miami. But very, very strong at the point of attack, sets the edge well, very good motor. Only one game look at how they may use him from last week, so they may move him around. We're not exactly sure. They have multiple edge rushers, but adding him to the mix, he's a really good football player.
When you're talking to Jacoby, he mentioned that the players kind of realized the magnitude of that Bengals game, which is why everybody played so well. How difficult is it to keep that urgency up now for these next 9 games?
Yeah, I think for us, Jeff, it really does go back to a one-game season, one game. This one's important. The next one's going to be important, and so on. But for us, we totally understand where we are, but we got to focus on going 1-0 down against a very, very good football team on the road.
Take these things 1 week at a time, but the reality is over the last 9 games, you're going to play 6 of these on the road in hostile environments. So I guess my question is, how do you prepare for that and maybe try and turn that into somewhat of an advantage for your team?
Yeah, I think, the NFL game, you got to go on the road and win. And in some tough environments where it's loud, and that has an effect on the offense, particularly on third down. So you got to be great in your operation. But we got one more road game than home game this year. You can't control how the schedule shakes out, those type of things. And, you really do have to have the mentality that you'll play anybody, anywhere, wherever it shakes out.
I know the linebacker room has obviously had so many injuries this year. I guess how important has Sione Takitaki been in putting up some of the best numbers of his career and flying around the field the way he has?
Yeah, he's played really well, and I think you've seen an increased number of snaps, and I think what he's done with those has been impressive. Sometimes when you're that base linebacker that comes off in nickel, you just don't get the opportunity, you don't get the exposure, and I think with added exposure, he's done a nice job. Plays very physical, good tackler, smart, in the right place. So excited for him to have a continued role in what we're doing moving forward.
Opportunity just the biggest change, you think, from season to season?
Yeah, I think it's simply that, just opportunity. Yes, Cam.
Sorry, Ashley. Jacoby also mentioned playing complementary football, and your message to them was this is what it could look like if we continue this. How important is it for you guys to keep that communication, not just with each other on all sides of the ball, but offense with the defense with special teams and all of that together going into this week?
I think it's vitally important. I think it's the greatest team game there is, and you need all 3 sides of the ball to play these team games, to get a team win. You really have to play together. You go back to that last game, our defense played really well early and kept the team in it, and I think that's really important. And then you're going to make a play on special teams, which is going to flip the field, and that's that winning the field position battle. So it all plays into it, and I think our team has been in situations where we know if we've fallen short, we just needed one more play from this side or one more play from this player or whatever it is. So we know the margins are so small in this game. That's why it is so important to play that complementary football and understand it's going to take all 3 sides of the ball.
Who still seems like he really wants to try to play in this game. Are you optimistic that he will?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see. He's rehabbing very, very hard. He's trying like crazy. I can't peg it right now on a Wednesday, but I wouldn't rule him out.
2-0 after buys and 2 previous seasons. You think you got this figured out? Playing over those last 3 5?
No, I mean, coming off the bye is a time to get healthy. So it's important for some guys that are battling. Mary Kay mentioned David. There's guys that are battling to get back. I think that's where the bye helps you. I think it helps you, like we've talked about, self-scout, to really understand yourself and then to dive into your opponent ahead of time. So I don't know what everyone's record is coming off the bye, but you would think that'd be an advantage to most teams.
500 overall.
Yeah, or better.
Obviously, Mike McDaniel spent a lot of time in the Shanahan system. Are there significant differences, though, with what he's running down there versus the Shanahan scheme?
I think everybody kind of shares a little bit of DNA, and there's a thread woven throughout them, these offenses in similar ways. And then what's so interesting to me is how different they can seem as well. So some teams like ourselves, we may feature different run types more so than others. What they're doing in Miami with a lot of the pre-snap motion is unique, and the way they're throwing the ball and the actions off of which they're throwing the ball is unique to them. So I think I do think there's similarities, but then the differences are pretty stark when you watch the tape.
The trade deadline's passed, so who you have is what you're going to go with down the stretch. And my question is leaning more towards Kareem's particular situation. His future for the rest of the year now is no longer in flux. Does that change anything for you when it comes to using him or incorporating him or anything like that? Now you have that 1-2 combination the rest.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Daryl, but it really doesn't affect me or us in any way. Kareem's a big part of what we do. He always has been, always will be. Plays hard. There's going to be opportunities for him. So, but in relation to the trade deadline, anything like that, doesn't really affect me.
Silly question, but what do you think about left-handed quarterbacks? Do they affect your game plan? Is it something that you would use in your system? Is it?
Yeah, you don't discriminate. So, yeah, I mean, lefty, righty doesn't really matter. I think there's a little bit of the element of the receivers getting used to catching that ball, but that comes pretty quickly once you get used to that, because obviously it's spinning differently. You can, at times, you run certain plays for righties that, a lot of quarterbacks are more comfortable rolling to the right when you're a righty, so some things may be mirrored when you have a lefty. But Tua in particular, there's no limitations to what he can do. He's playing at a very high level. He's making throws to every area of the field, operating their system, showing accuracy, making good decisions with the ball. So he's doing a nice job.
Going to a game when you're preparing for Tua, is he one of those guys similar to the Lamars where you want to keep him pinned in the pocket?
He's athletic. He can make plays with his feet, but I think he's a very good thrower of the football. I mean, the ball comes out of his hand quickly, so in terms of keeping him in the pocket, they will have design movements and those type of things, but he does a nice job of processing quickly and getting the ball out quickly, which we would expect to continue. Doesn't make it any easier because he's still playing at a high level.
Are you guys keeping an eye on the weather, and are you worried at all about travel plans or anything going on for the weekend?
No, I think travel plans, we should be okay. It's going to be warm. It'll be 82, sounds like, on Sunday. It'll be warmer in the sun on our sideline, so we'll have plans for that. But I always tell the guys, we don't control the weather. We deal with it. So whatever it is, it is. But I do want them to know ahead of time just to have the hydration and do the things that can help them leading into Sunday.
Kevin, I know we've talked about Nick Chubb's consistency and work ethic and all the great things about him ad nauseum, but what does it mean overall to have, for a franchise, to have that kind of a player that you can point to for all your young players to follow, all the things that he brings?
Yeah, I think, Nick's a great example, Tom, of you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be vocal. You don't have to be boisterous. Don't have to be giving pregame speeches in order to lead. He's a great leader by example. He will speak up when necessary, and he has done that. But I think it's always good when there's an example of how to do it the right way. And that's helpful in the running back room. I think it's helpful to the offense, helpful to the team. I think when you have a guy that's a pro's pro that does his job, I think everybody sees that. The fact that he doesn't say much, doesn't change his standing to me, to his teammates, or whatever. I just think they see a guy that knows when it's time to get to work.
When he speaks up like that, does that kind of give it a little extra punch because he's not the type to normally speak up?
It's always, I mean, with Nick, anytime he speaks, it's, it's coming from somewhere that's important to him. He's part of our leadership group, so he shares his opinions to the group. So he's earned that role on our football team.
Going back to that question about the Shanahan offenses and how everybody kind of does it different, as you're going through a week like this or some other team, are there times when you see something and like put a pin in it and say, hey, I can use that, or things you've never thought of?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think you get into the season and you're game planning, you're watching a lot of tape, and you're always looking for inspiration. So sometimes you put on I have coaches that grab tape of certain teams that I always want to see the stuff that they're doing week in and week out, so you can steal it. And that's just, and sometimes you steal it exactly as it is. Sometimes you grab it and say, okay, they did it this way, it probably fits us to do it that way. So there are teams that we share similarities with that we watch every single week to help us with ideas.
Somebody runs something against you and you're like, hey, wait, that's mine.
Yeah. It happens. And listen, I don't know if there's any original ideas anymore. I mean, we're all stealing from each other, and I'm not afraid to admit it either.
You mentioned the Miami sideline thing, and that's kind of like a really niche, have you ever experienced anything like that at opposing stadiums where maybe they have an advantage that you wouldn't even think about? Or
I remember when we played the Seahawks in the playoffs when it was -6 degrees when I was with the Vikings, and we were at the Vikings. We were purposefully put the sideline where we did. It was on the other side of the Gophers, so we were actually on the visitor side than the Gophers, but knew that in cold weather that would be the shade. So it was -6 in the sun. I don't even know what it was. It was colder in the shade that day. Now the Seahawks played great, but that's one example of where you can do some things home field advantage when it comes to weather. Okay, thanks guys.
You're up.
All right, there's Coach at the podium. Browns fans catch the Kevin Stefanski Show with Z and Gerard tomorrow night, 7 to 8. Teams on Eastland Road in Middleburg Heights. Meet Browns tight end Harrison Bryant. Check out Thursday Night Football as the guys get you ready for Sunday's game against the Dolphins. Coming up next, some thoughts on Coach's presser right there and some roster movement that we've had already this morning. We get to all of that coming up next. We're off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Bo here for my friends at Renew Home Exteriors. Upgrade the look and value of your home with new siding from Renew Home Exteriors, ranging in every architectural style and over 50 colors. Save thousands this month during the Renew Home Exteriors end of the siding sale. 24 months, no payments, no interest. Take advantage of the year-end deals before January 1st. Price hikes start. Beautify your home. Premium siding roofing products at lower prices with Renew Home Exteriors. Visit RenewEstimate.com.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful. By the way, beautiful yesterday. We had the election day, and I found civility everywhere.
Totally. Same.
It was crazy. We were talking about it before the show started. Like, sometimes I think you feel like the reality is the social media where there's all this anger and discourse, but then in the reality of life, it's fine. Like, you take a loss, you take a dub, and you move on, and that's it, and everybody's fine.
Democracy, baby.
Yeah, that was good. That's good. Did you find were you bouncing around? Were you into it at all the election night last night?
I just glanced at it like as I went to bed because it's more. I'm not necessarily interested in them being. Oh well, just
right.
tell what happened.
Who won?
All right, what happened?
Let me know.
What does it mean?
I do like,
and it's not even decided anyway.
In a lot of places, not. I do like I think it was like at 9:00 yesterday. I just went to like all of the cable channels, and it was just fascinating. The tone,
the difference,
was stunning. All the way around.
Yeah,
and it's it's very much like. It's far more serious and the stakes are much greater, but very much like sports. How you frame it the way that you want for your hometown team.
There are different homers, right?
Yeah,
there are homers on for every team there,
right? Yeah. And although the crazy thing, and this happened in the last 20 years or so, inevitably we were all on the same team in this one. And in sports, you do kind of stay separate, but that's not the case there. But that's always one of my favorite things to do. Give me 10 minutes on each one to just see how they kind of spin it a little bit. We have some roster updates. These are from yesterday afternoon. Wide receiver Cyril Grayson to the practice squad and waived Herb Miller to the active roster. What can you tell me about Grayson?
Not much.
Not much. Brother.
Welcome aboard, brother.
Yeah.
See if you can get out there. It's always one of those things. You're getting guys to run around. I wouldn't be surprised if Herb Miller ends up back on the practice squad after he was released from the active roster for the Browns. He's somebody that they like, obviously, in the program. But, Cyril Grayson, not anybody that's going to make an impact on the lineup anytime soon. So I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath for that. Again, this is stuff we have people come and go from the practice squad who never.
Sometimes they end up being bartenders.
Sometimes.
You never know.
Never know. And you never know if they are going to get to play in the games, if they
claim they do, or if they do.
Who knows?
We don't know.
You never know.
It's all in play.
So Grayson, by the way, third year out of Louisiana State, originally signed by Seattle as an undrafted free agent in 2017. He's been with the Seahawks, the Colts, the Texans, the Bears, the Cowboys, the Bucks. Over the course of his career, 10 games, 11 catches, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Did not participate in college football, ran track and field at LSU.
Oh, I remember
was
this
a
guy.
4-time champion, 7-time All-American between the indoor and outdoor seasons of 13 to 16. So a burner, but an older guy, right? I mean, if he graduated in 16 from college.
So tried to give it a go on the Olympic circuit and now trying to see if the speed can.
Well, he kind of came right in because in 17 he was originally with Seattle.
Yeah.
So he's been on – it's interesting. One of the things, he's never really made it. But he's been on practice squads of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different teams over the course of 5 years.
Speed is tantalizing.
Yeah, I'm curious. What's up with the guy from Philly? Where's that guy at? That guy from Philly in the preseason that runs like a...
That guy, I was blanking for a second.
He was an medalist in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And ran right by our defense.
He did,
in that game. And I don't think he's been active or anything.
Yeah. Also, the rare Louisiana State out of you. As opposed to LSU. Usually it's an LSU.
That was Ron Burgundy. That's what it says. Grayson is in his third year out of Louisiana State. I literally read
Papa
what was
Burgundy.
On the prompter.
It's rare that you get a
Louisiana. I'm surprised that why I wouldn't say LSU in there, to be honest with you.
It
I
does
have to
feel
talk to Dom about that.
That's a good job. Yeah, probably would need to talk to Dom because I've never Louisiana State. I mean, that's kind of like when I think the only other comparison I can think of in my head is Penn State. Like nobody ever says Pennsylvania State.
Yeah,
he's that fifth-year player out of Pennsylvania State. Like it's always Penn State,
like
and LSU is always LSU.
We need to get Dom in here.
It's never Louisiana State.
No,
but Ohio State isn't necessarily always OSU. It's usually Ohio State.
The
yeah.
You get a Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, there's a Louisiana.
A Louisiana.
Yeah,
Louisiana Tech. You get what's the other one like? Louisiana Lafayette Monroe or something like that.
2 different places. Louisiana Lafayette now is just branded Louisiana.
Oh, that's just
the Ragin' Cajuns. And then there's Louisiana Monroe.
And
then there's Louisiana Tech, and then Tulane and a bunch of others. But
the Green Wave.
We go on forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great logo and nickname, by the way, the Green Wave. Big
awesome.
fan of that. Yeah,
And
huge fan. Color scheme's great. They're ranked 18th in the country in football.
If you go to college there, aren't you just partying in New Orleans?
Yeah, I just assume that if you go to – I don't know. I'm sure –
I know people going to the best time ever.
I'm sure it's fantastic. I also feel like if you go to Tulane, like somehow you end up a lawyer in a John Grisham book. Like those seem linked to me. Like
Feels like it should be.
Feels like that's the way that's going to go. Not practicing today as we begin preparations for Miami. MJ Emerson, that's a bit of a red flag.
I don't like that. It says illness.
Yeah, he's imperative. The Chief still with the ankle, JOK with the knee, and Perry and Winfrey on the illness. Precautionary, you hope, on all the illness parts.
Yes.
We talked about Chief yesterday a little bit. I'm sure he's going to give it his best to go, but that'll be something we'll determine later in the week. The one we always pay attention to is the Friday injury report, right? That's when we start to really hone in on, like, if you don't practice Friday, you don't play typically.
That's correct. What you also can get some ideas from, during the week is not necessarily like if they practice, are they, how are they feeling? Are they able to be involved in anything, whether it's individual, whether it's walkthrough? Are they able to be involved in anything? And that can give you a little bit of, comfort and vibes on if somebody's going to be able to go or not.
And I see nothing from Denzel Ward on this.
No, so he's going to practice. Coach
So
said
that
that
would
he
mean-
he can't say that he's fully through the protocol, but that he is going to practice, and hopefully that will be a good thing.
That would be a very good thing because you're going to need the corners, all three of them, and then some this week against this Miami team. There's some staggering stuff as when we meet the Dolphins, staggering stuff they're doing offensively.
It's
stunning.
Nuts.
Could you think of one better from a just pure speed 1-2 duo in NFL in your NFL lifetime? I couldn't. I thought about it after the show. I was trying to think if there was anybody that I missed, any combination I missed of two burners that both take the top off.
Who are the guys like back in the day with Elway?
Like what was his
Vance
name?
Johnson?
It's Vance Johnson. Yeah.
And Ricky something?
Ricky Nattiel?
Yeah, they weren't. I don't think they
this.
were like this though.
Willie
From a
Gault
speed point.
and somebody would be a
Willie
chance.
by himself. Yeah, but he was kind of a
Gault and Tim Brown?
Tim Brown was not a burner. Tim Brown was like Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
He could beat you deep, but he was just like the best route runner.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah, there were some of those Oilers teams that I'm remembering.
Haywood
some super,
Jeffries?
super Tech Mobile with Drew. Was it Drew Hill and Hayward Jeffries? And, like, I don't know if they had a couple of guys who could fly though. Yeah, I mean, this is you just don't ever see two guys who, and these guys are both. They're not like they're both just Willie Gault run straight lines. Like these are big time receivers who also possess the next gear speed wise. You just rarely see anything like what this Miami operation has, and they're taking.
Watching the tape is terrifying.
Yeah,
they're
right.
terrifying. That's the thing that I don't even understand about watching them, is that guys are so open that it's just bonkers. They're open by a mile.
The PFF guys are calling Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in respect to Tua. They're calling them Bama open.
Yes.
It's like he's at Bama again.
Yes.
Like, remember, that's always been the critique of like the Ohio State quarterbacks. It's hard to judge them because the guys are so open. The receiving corps is so good. These guys are Bama open, which I think makes a lot of sense.
For that in the NFL, though, it's two things, right? Because it's not just how good they are.
Yeah.
It's how good the scheme
Sure.
is. And they're
married.
Yeah. Now, I got a chance to talk with Amari. We'll hear that tomorrow. I love talking with him. He was one of my favorite people to talk with just from a football standpoint and hearing the way that he goes about his business and attacks things. But he says, like, for a player, it is easy to execute and take advantage of your strengths when you have a good game plan. Like if the coaches put you in the right position to eat, it's very easy. When you're not, it becomes very difficult. And what you have there is a marriage of extreme talent and extremely good game planning from Mike McDaniel. And so it makes offense very easy to play.
Gibby, did you have something?
We can go through it later since I believe Bernard is going to be calling here momentarily.
All right, very good. All right, so we'll get to Gibby's
I have
points.
the wide receiver combos to go through.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So.
Hey, Browns fans, skip the chore of laundry. Enjoy life, not laundry. Tide Cleaners offering 30% off dry cleaning for the month of October and be entered to win 4 VIP Browns tickets to an upcoming home game. Just mention the promo code Browns. Visit TideCleaners.com to find the closest location to you. Some exclusions may apply. The great Bernie Kosar coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, Browns fans, you can enter for a chance to win season tickets for the 2023 season from Sugardale and your local Meijer. Two lucky fans are going to have a chance to compete on the field during halftime of the November 27th game for the ultimate prize. Text Browns to 55678 to enter today. Now we head out on the Twisted Tea hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. It's our great friend, the legend Bernie Kosar, on the hotline. Bernie, Z and I were talking about Waddle and Tyreek Hill and their explosiveness. What's the best? It's hard to find one that's as explosive as that. In as far as our head goes, is there any duo that jumps out to you that had that type of high end speed and ability that these two have?
Wow. You know what? I was actually listening to the last segment, and you guys are doing an awesome job as usual. And I love the phrase "Alabama open." That's the way those guys get open. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. To see the separation that those guys have. To see, and as I'm trying to come up with a couple of receivers in my head that assimilate to the same awesome duo that those guys are doing right now. It's really hard for me to come up with one off the top of my head. And as I was thinking about that, to compound the issue, I talk about, you guys talk about so much on the show through the course of the year, how much respect and admiration I have for Coach Stefanski and the way he masterfully uses personnel groups, motions, and shifts, in particular early in the game, to really throw the opposing defenses off base to get us into the game. And we've talked about how great he does scripting those first 15 to 20 plays. Well, same with, unfortunately, with Mike McDaniel and what he's doing with his motions and shifts. The personnel groups, he's not switching as much. But boy, each week he's kind of coming up with a new motion, a new shift, a new personnel grouping, and on top of the play action past the RPO game that he's implemented with Tua right now, it's really put a dynamic to this offense that's challenging every defense that plays week in and week out. And it's a tribute to our Browns to show you how good our Browns offense has been, that we're actually rated offensively a little higher than this phenomenal Miami Dolphins offense.
That's right. The Miami Dolphins coming to this as the number 5 overall offense in the NFL, the number 10 scoring offense. And Bernie astutely pointing out the Browns' total offense. We are number 4 in the league in total offense. We are number 7 in scoring, 25 points a game. But this team, to be fair, had a few games without Tua that would impact their numbers a little bit. But Bernie, when we were talking about these duos, yes, it's great. And you mentioned right there what Mike McDaniel's doing, and it's the great game plan and then the ability to execute it. They can do that. But Tua is leading the league in touchdown percentage, quarterback rating, QBR, third down quarterback rating, 147 on third downs, the highest rate we've ever seen since 1991. Yards per attempt, yards per completion, air yards per attempt. And you watch him and you go, And yet, he's clearly operating this offense at a high level. I would be stunned to see what this offense would look like with a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen just substituting in for him. But what makes him so effective, and how is this offense working despite what's obvious on tape, which are the physical limitations of his arm?
Yeah, and even with and I was just doing a interview down in Miami with my ex-teammate, the great Cleveland Brown Leroy Horde, down there, and we were talking about arm strength. And when I was playing quarterback in Leroy, it was the end of my career, the beginning of Leroy's, and my arm strength was deteriorating at times. And it looked like, and Tua doesn't have the arm strength that the Justin Aberts, the Josh Allens have right now. But he does have that awesome ability to throw quickness with timing and in stride, that intermediate pass from that 6 to 18 yards, and what he's able to do with his ball mechanics, with his placement of his eyes, where he's able to do the play action fakes, but yet still keep his eyes downfield to understand what that RPO read is going to be able to make that determination whether it should be a run or pass. He's making that a really exceptional quick speed, and then. But his ability, though, even though his arm strength may be lacking, he makes up for it with his intelligence and his accuracy. Man, he's hitting guys right on stride.
Yep.
To where the rack run after a catch has been phenomenal. And I say this somewhat with admiration and somewhat in seriousness of where the league's going, but even with his arm strength, he throws the ball, and he's hit a couple post routes. He's hit a couple 50-yard throws down the field this year to keep defenses honest. And actually, because he has some of the same medical doctors that I had back in the old days, he even did a couple of those when he was concussed afterwards. So for him to be able to have that resiliency, have that toughness, and then almost like the old Jimmy Johnson line, somehow, some way. Tua somehow, some way finds a way to make plays, and I'm enjoying watching him play. I hope he has a couple bumps in his game this week, because he has had a tendency in some of these RPOs to at times throw the ball, throw a couple plays a game where he misreads it and maybe gives you an opportunity to make have an interception. And Denzel Ward, hopefully he's going to be back this week. To have our third corner would be a big help for us, because the Dolphins aren't running the ball as good. They're doing the RPOs, but they look to be doing the RPOs to be able to get the throws. So having Denzel back I think would be a big help towards trying to slow down that Dolphin offense.
Bernie, we oftentimes will ask you to put on your offensive hat and just steal your offensive acumen, which is elite. I want to flip it. If you're Joe Woods and you're dealing with these two in this scheme, and a quarterback like Tua who processes pretty quick and gets it out pretty quick, and we have our full complement of corners and defensive backs, what's the antidote to what this Dolphins team is?
Well, I think the one thing you saw last week is they're going to make their plays, but don't let them don't break down on your defense and stuff. So, like, when Tua gets outside the pocket, when he's able to ad-lib, he's really dangerous and stuff. When they're able, when we're not in our run gaps and stuff, you're not in the linebackers take the cheese on the RPOs, and you're not getting your depth, you're not getting your drop. So it's really imperative this week. We talked ad nauseum early in the year about communication issues and communication breakdowns. Mike McDaniels will try to come up with some things to challenge us in the communication side of it. So obviously you want to get pressure on them, but you really want to be sound and fundamental and limit your mental mistakes, your MEs in a game like this with this type of talent that you're playing against.
All right, Bernie, and how about this knowledge? What does this say to you about the quarterback, the offensive system, and maybe a way to try to stop him? Is that you look at Tua's passes, 1,230 of his yards, roughly about 2/3 of his passing yards come on throws between the numbers, which is one of the highest rates in the league.
Oh, Nathan, yeah. Bring it on, Nathan.
Living in the middle of the field, which is, you'd feel like it's a dangerous thing to do. So how do we stop that?
So absolutely. We used to talk about this last year when we talked about bad weather, windy games in our Cleveland Stadium and stuff, is you pack it inside the numbers and you absolutely squat and play off outside, and you don't let them have those easy throws in the middle, and you force those deep comeback throws, those 16-yard comebacks, and God bless if you could make a steady diet of hitting those. And typically, when you look at film of any team, but the Dolphins in particular, their throws there's an inordinate, disproportionate amount in between the numbers, and almost no deep throws when the corner's off and outside. So you're probably 99% of the time not going to get a deep throw over your head, so you're able to squat outside and funnel everything inside, and don't give him those easy throws, and they're absolutely right on point, Nathan.
I like that.
Yeah, there you go. I wanted to touch on something else for you because we had the trade deadline last week, and we had Kareem Hunt stay here. We had Nick Chubb say today how important it was to him that Kareem Hunt was still a member of this team. I've seen some of your comments about it as well. I just think he's one of the Pied Pipers of this team, and I think that this is obviously uphill, like our record is what the record is, but I think he can be an emotional fuel for this team down the stretch. What do you like about Kareem and his game, and how do we take even more advantage of his skills here in the second half?
Yeah, Bo, you're juicing me up with all kinds of emotion and goosebumps here as you're asking a question. Not only did we have were we talking at this point a couple weeks ago about the importance of winning that Cincinnati game, to be 3-5 in the bye week, not 2-6, to have hope, to have that opportunity of the playoffs, albeit it's still a long shot. At 3-5 is still an opportunity. At 2-6, it would not have been. So to have that win, and then to have Kareem touched the ball for I think 11 times for. He had 71 total yards of offense, and the emotional lift that he brings on the field, in the locker room, I can't discount that. I absolutely love it. And then the physical abilities that he brings on the field, it's special. And for the second half of the year, that combination of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and Kareem being used in the being used offensively more is absolutely, I think, what Coach Stefanski wants to be doing, and his leadership and his violence that he runs. At the end of the year, the physicalness of our team is what's going to carry us in December and stuff. And Kareem Hunt, his physical way he runs the ball, the physical way that he punishes defenses when he's in that second level, that's not only does it wear down other defenses, it emotionally lifts up our young football team. I think it's phenomenal.
Bernie, I want to go back to picking your great brain again as it relates to offensive football. And do you ever watch the Manning cast, Bernie?
No, I love it. Yes.
It's great,
yes.
Right? And so I thought it was cool that Kirk Cousins went on there, who's right now leading a, 7-1 Minnesota Vikings team. And he had a question for Peyton as they went to a break. We're seeing a higher utilization of cover zero pressures in the NFL this year. And he asked Peyton and Eli, well, what's your answer to that? What did you want to do when you saw cover zero? And we saw last week against the Bengals, cover zero gave us a problem. We had a turnover as a result of cover zero. We didn't have enough people to pick it up. And then I go and I look in my preparation. Wouldn't you know, Miami, cover zero. They blitz a cover all-out blitz on 10.2% of their snaps, second most in the NFL in terms of pass snaps. They blitz 37% on all plays, third most in the NFL. So, Bernie, what is the answer? Because when you put on tape, we struggled with this. This is something Miami does. You know we're going to see it this week. What's the answer?
I'm thinking, I'm not trying to make this about myself, but I'm thinking if I don't want to, bless me, Father, for I'm about to sin, I had to retire when they stopped blitzing me for cover zero. The old school quarterbacks lived for cover zero. Used to get that about 6 to 10 snaps a game, and I would almost want to play around for the other 50 snaps, waiting for those 6 to 10 snaps to be able to take a shot and try to score. And one of the, I think, issues, and this is probably good for the long-term health of players, is in the old days, you used to practice against blitz drill day in and day out. You would get that zero cover blitz on Wednesday in practice, Thursday in practice. You'd do it live. You would block it live. You would simulate game activity just like it was on Sunday, and you would practice that. You don't really get to practice that much live blitz pickups these days, and teams aren't doing it as much. And then without as many of the audibles, some teams look at it as something just to get by, as opposed to punishing the hell out of teams that do that. And when you see a team that has a 10% zero blitz ratio and actually digging a little deeper into it, they tend to want to do those zero blitzes as they're crossing the 50-yard line and as they are in second and longer situations also. Man, those are teams where you really got to punish them. The Bengals also showed that they have a tendency to do zero blitzes, so we would have prepared for them before that game. Unfortunately, we did not handle it well, so that turned into the turnovers and a couple of bad plays within the game. The Dolphins are for sure going to be seeing that. They're going to definitely test us on it, and this is the pro. As Coach Stefanski did that, we had the bye week. There's no doubt that we practiced against that, and there will be a plan to take advantage of that, because you hit it right on the Nathan. They do it too much, not for it to show up on the statistical breakdowns of it, and then because we've struggled against it, in particular in our last game on Monday Night Football. I know we'll have a good plan for that. We'll have to anticipate it, and just like I'm getting elevated and emotionally excited thinking about a zero blitz, I have a feeling Jacoby and our offense and our offensive staff will come up with a plan anticipating it and try to make them really pay for it.
What did you like to throw out of it? Did you like to just take your best one-on-one matchup and just throw a go ball to them? Did you like to have like a little pick play on the outside where you could get a quick hitter on an inward breaking route or an outward breaking route, depending on which side of the pick you liked better? What did you like to throw when you knew that was coming, and also to protect in the event that if they dropped out of it, if they were just showing it, a simulated pressure and dropped out of it, that you wouldn't be throwing into their droppers?
Yeah, great question. So I absolutely would say I want to throw it outside and throw it to the takeoff. But really, when you have zero coverage and you have, like, I love to have two backs and or my tight end in the game to have them blocking, because you have the opportunity to block up 7 or 8 guys and pick up the blitz. But one of the inherently risky things to do is if you have 2 to 3 receivers to a side, and I would want to throw the post to the inside receiver. You're throwing to a slot receiver where the defensive back / safety has to cover him all over the field, because typically it's when you get a secondary blitz, the safety is coming down to cover number 2 or number 3. Well, that's sometimes a safety on your second wide receiver and stuff. So that's typically a matchup where your receiver's faster. If it was press coverage, 11 up, and a zero blitz look, Nathan, I'm not saying this to be funny. 100% of the time in my entire career, 100% of the time, I would check to an audible and punish them to try to throw the post in the middle of the field. I love it. I mean, literally, I did it too much to where the last couple of years of my career, I got zero blitzes and had to retire. I couldn't be successful without that coverage. I had to go get a real job.
Bernie, we'll get you out of here on this one. I saw you retweeted this. I saw the memory from November 7th. Drawn up in the dirt, the final play, your pass, a 38-yard touchdown pass against the Broncos. What do you remember now that you look back on that all these years later? What drawn up in the dirt, was it really? What can you tell us about that huddle, the play, and the immediate aftermath?
Wow, it doesn't seem like 29 years ago that happened, and it was funny because we had back then, we say the joke that we had green grass, natural grass back then, but it really was mud and dirt that was spray painted green. So you had the infield, you had mud, you had stuff where you could get on your knee, and just like a little boy, you could draw plays, you could draw in the dirt and stuff. And I knew I had been changing plays. I knew Coach Belichick sometimes didn't like it, and I knew though that I had to be successful with it. And we had never run the Denver Broncos back then. They had really aggressive safeties. Dennis Smith and Steve Atwater, and they really hit they hit the receivers a lot, almost like our defensive backs need to do to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this week. Pressure, hit them, get real physical with them. Well, those safeties were doing that to us. So I'd never run a square end takeoff, not even in practice. So basically run down 16 yards, run a square end, cut across the field. Well, that was a basic play that they've been running since the beginning of football. Well, the Smith and Atwater kept pressing up, so I knew I wanted them to run a square and takeoff, and because we had never done it, I wanted to make sure he really understood what I was saying. And I looked in his eyes, and it had kind of that glassy look like he didn't understand. So I'm like, hell with it. I know I'm going to get in trouble. I better get down and draw it up and stuff. So to have it go and then work perfect for a touchdown, I was coming off the field and Bill was yelling, and I kind of thought he was joking, so I kind of blew it off. But obviously, by getting called into the office the next day and then 2 days later being on a plane to Dallas, he wasn't joking.
It's just an unbelievable. I absolutely love it. Love talking to you, buddy. Thank you. Go ahead, Bird.
I'm glad I ended up with a Super Bowl ring. And
exactly.
You know, and one of the hidden blessings of it was the team ended up going a couple years later, so not having to really make that decision to go to Baltimore and stuff. So the fate of it all, it was kind of eerie to see that clip come up and this be be the anniversary of it this week.
That's great. Great. Love talking to you, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
You matter, guys. Go Browns.
All right, the great Bernie Kosar joining us on the Twisted Tea hotline. There's nothing quite like tailgating touchdowns and Twisted Tea. It tastes just like real iced tea. You know why? Because it is. It's made with real brewed iced tea. Cool, refreshing, and a 5% kick of alcohol. It's third down and goal. Twisted Tea, hard iced tea. Keep it twisted. Coming up next, our Chief Strategy Officer, Paul DePodesta, joins the program. You have that to look forward to, which is nice. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. For a team of injury lawyers dedicated to every client every day, call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk and Elk's a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Now let's head again back out on the Twisted Tea hotline. Luminary after luminary. Twisted Tea, hard iced tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted. Cleveland, our chief strategy officer, Paul DePodesta, joining the show. Paul, I don't know if you know this or not, Nathan and I, with the bye week, we got away, little 5-star resort, went down to the Caribbean, played a lot of golf. I assume that's the same for you guys, right? I mean, you guys didn't do anything, right? Just chilled?
That's not exactly what we did, but it sounds nice.
A little more work for the folks though out there. We kid, obviously. Neither one of us were that. We were grinding on trying to make this show perfect and looking at every angle at it. And I imagine you guys are doing the same. When a bye week happens and it's timed in the middle of the season, the way this one is the process the same year in and year out? What gets done during this week for you guys? What's job one?
Sure. I'll go back actually to 2020, which was our first sort of bye week with the current, group we have with the coaching staff. And they really wanted to dive in. And it was also right in the middle of the season. So it lined up well. They really wanted to dive into, the first 8 games or so and ask some very basic questions. Hey, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What adjustments can we make? What are some things we can lean on, more going in the second half, et cetera? And I think that week ended up being really dynamic for us, to be honest. We made, a handful of changes. There were a number of things that we identified that we were then able to, implement, going forward, and it made a significant difference for us down the stretch. Last year, was a little different. We didn't have the bye week until much later in the season.
Yep.
What was it, week 12 or 13? So we couldn't really we couldn't wait that long. Right. So this year, as a consequence, we've actually been sort of doing that same analysis we would normally do at the bye week. We've been doing now every week since about week 4. I mean, once you have a meaningful amount of data, in all 3 phases, you can start looking at those things and say, okay, what are some early trends in terms of what we're doing well and what we're not? But we had already started implementing a couple of changes the last few weeks. So while this week was certainly busy, just like every other bye week, and also giving us a chance to dive a little bit deeper than we would normally be able to do when we have a game coming up that weekend, we got sort of a jump start on it this year. So I think there are going to be some good things coming out of this week that'll help us here in the second half of the year. But hopefully we've already seen, a glimpse of some of those things in the last couple of weeks.
Paul, let's start on the offensive side of the ball, where if I had told you through 8 games with Jacoby at quarterback, we would be the number 4 total offense, the number 7 scoring offense in the NFL. Would that have surprised you, and what do you make of the performance of this offense under some difficult circumstances?
Yeah, disappointed we wouldn't be in the top 3. Yeah, if you had told me that at the beginning. No, look, I know Kevin said it all along, and we said it, but we had a ton of confidence in Jacoby. It really felt like he was a great fit for our team. Also, just in terms of his sort of leadership ability, his play style, we just really felt it fit with what we were going to be trying to do. So I don't know that any of us would have predicted we would have done that well, especially right out of the gate, but certainly very happy with it. And while I'd hesitate to say surprised, because again, I think internally we had pretty high expectations for what we would be able to do. But I think we feel at least gratified that we're kind of on course. And when we look at it, as we did these last handful of weeks, and certainly that over last week in the bye, there's more we can do. We feel like there's more there that we can squeeze out of the offense at this point, despite the fact that they've been, very productive to date.
When you looked at the trade deadline trades that were made, when you looked at some of the trades that were made in the preseason, and I'm talking specifically about Amari Cooper and at the wide receiver position, are you guys kind of stunned that you actually were able to get Amari Cooper for the compensation that you did, and that somehow it happened and he's come here and he is absolutely thriving, our leading receiver on pace for his 6th 1,000-yard season?
Yeah, Amari's played great, and he's really been the staple, certainly on the outside of our passing game, although all the guys have played well. I think Donovan's stepped up and played really well this year also.
Yep.
But Amari certainly has been fundamental to our success. One of the things we talk a lot about throughout the year when we were talking about roster building is just optionality, right? Whenever there's a good player available, you want to jump on. You feel like, we can't miss this opportunity. And we're always doing our diligence on every single one of these. Even the deals that happened 2 weeks ago at the trading deadline, we were doing the same. But then we always have to remind ourselves that we don't know what else is going to be available to us around the corner, right? So if you had asked us at this time last year, do you think there's a chance that Amari Cooper will be a Brown in 2022? We would have said, boy, that seems highly unlikely.
Sure.
We wouldn't have envisioned him as a natural fit. I mean, naturally what you're doing is you're looking at the draft, you're looking at upcoming free agents, things like that. But you never know. You never know what might come available. So I think we investigate all those opportunities as they come up and try to be opportunistic. But be in a position to be able to jump on those, which we were. I mean, it's part of the reason we are so diligent about having the cap space that we do, so that we can take advantage of those opportunities when they do arise. And we were able to do that with Amari, and so far it's really paid off.
Yeah, it really has. It's been incredible both on the field and off. Paul, I wanted to ask you about, go back a couple of weeks ago to the trade deadline, and AB mentioned close on a guy, and obviously you're not going to tell us who you were on or probably even the position or anything for that matter. But
if you'd like to, we're curious. We're
curious.
Just for the position.
My hunch is no. My question was going to be more along the lines of, there were some enormous deals that were made this year at the deadline. And as we sit here, the deadline, as you mentioned, was 2 weeks ago. And here we are. We're right now at the halfway point of the season. Would you be an advocate of backing that thing up a bit and getting it a couple weeks further into the season than when it hits? It feels to us that maybe it hits a little early. Where do you stand on that? And how active was this year's deadline from your guys' vantage point in terms of everybody being on the phones and trying to get things done?
So I'll take the last one first. I mean, it certainly seems like the league was more transactional, this year than they have in the past, and I think that's ramped up over time. I mean, just in my 7 years, there have been some years that have been very, very quiet with little or no activity. Certainly no big names, changing teams, but this year that was not the case. Obviously, quite a few bigger deals that happened. In terms of the timing, I have maybe a slightly different perspective on this because of all my years in baseball. And we moved the deadline around in baseball as well. And I think, you want to find that sweet spot where, maybe enough teams have been able to identify if they're in it or not, whether or not they're sort of willing to make that extra step to go for it. But at the same, and you can't have it so early that nobody wants to move anybody. You also can't have it so late that every team that, is a game under 500 is just dumping their players. And then it totally shifts to all the teams that happen to be a game over 500, or better. And they're just sort of sucking up all the pending free agents or whatever. So that's not great either. I don't know exactly what that sweet spot is. It might be a touch later than what it is right now, but you do have to be a little careful about the sort of unintended consequences of moving around too much. The one other thing in football that's quite different, in baseball, we had one instance where we traded for a reliever and he was playing for the team that we were facing. He literally walked across the hall and came into our clubhouse and changed uniforms and pitched for us. Right away. There's not much more that has to go into it. Hey, they have to pitch, they have to hit. But there's not a whole lot beyond that. In football, you have to learn a new playbook. You have to learn what it's like to play alongside all the other guys you're with, whether you're an offensive lineman, whether you're a receiver with a quarterback, whether you're a DB, and having to communicate with the rest of the DBs. It's just different. I was super impressed with what the Vikings were able to do with TJ Hawkinson this weekend to get him up to speed and have him play as much as he did and play such a significant role. But that's really rare. Oftentimes it takes at least a couple weeks to sort of onboard a new player in the NFL, almost regardless of position. Some will take a little longer than others. So again, if you move the deadline back too late, some of these guys may barely play for you, in the regular season because it's just not practical to get them up to speed.
Yeah, it's like Jeff Wilson last week, who we'll see this week going and staying in. He knew Mike McDaniel. He knew this offense, so he didn't have to learn much, but made an impact, hit the ground running, to say the least. Let's talk for a second about, defensively. You mentioned some changes have been made. I would imagine some of them were on the defense, where I think we've turned in back-to-back incredibly good performances, winning performances. And no, unfortunately, it wasn't that way since week one. But what were maybe some of the changes, or what have you seen from the defense that has led to some of the big improvements we've seen against the Ravens and the Bengals?
Well, the Ravens, it's just such a unique matchup.
Yep.
Every day you don't prepare for them the way you prepare for anyone else. So that's sort of a standalone. But obviously we get to face them twice a year. I think our staff now has a good feel for what we try to do against them. And I think we've gotten more successful here as they've gained more experience against that offense, which is really brilliantly designed. But that was great to see, and I think it gave our guys some confidence. And then going into Cincinnati, I think we played our most sound, game of the year, most complete game of the year, defensively, which was great to see. So much of it for us on defense, I think, is just having everybody on the same page. We know that when all 11 guys do their job, we're really good. We're really good, and we just have to have that happen more often, right?
Yeah.
We're all 11 are doing their job, and that's easier said than done. But early in the season, we had some busts that really cost us. Those really went away after the first couple weeks, and then I think as we've been able to understand, the different concepts that we run more efficiently, where we have a better chance of all 11 guys sort of doing their job. I think those are the things you're probably going to see more and more as the year goes on. But defense more so than offense is really opponent dependent, right? I mean, I already mentioned it with the Ravens. We played a very different style when we played the Bengals. Probably see something different this coming weekend when we play the Dolphins. That's just the nature of it. I think we have to be multiple on defense and be able to respond to what the offense is going to try to do to us.
Paul, what, if anything, can you tell us about the plan on the return on Deshaun? Obviously, he's back in the building now, and we'll be back to practice next week, or 3 more weeks without him, and then the return. And I'm sure some of that stuff you guys want to keep under wraps. But how did you come up with a plan on this return and integrating him back into the roster to have him ready for early December?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just having a lot of different people weigh in on that, including Deshaun. This is an unusual circumstance, so just trying to figure out the best path forward. So whether it's from our strength and conditioning folks, our trainers, and even from an offensive coordinator perspective, quarterback coach, like trying to figure out how do we best sort of get him back on board and make sure he's ready. But at the same time, Jacoby's got to get ready to start and beat Miami, and
right.
He's got to get ready to start and beat Buffalo, and et cetera. So that has to be our focus as well. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to do that, where hopefully get the best of both worlds, where Jacoby gets all the reps he needs, but we also begin to ramp Deshaun up once he returns to practice over the course of a couple weeks to get him in a position where he's ready to play when the time comes.
Yeah, and hopefully we as a team can put ourselves in a position when the time comes that we are able to try to really make a run at this thing here in December and beyond. You mentioned the defensive game plans. They're different for every team. Well, just like in some ways one of one are the Baltimore Ravens, you might say so are the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We want to see if maybe you can help us out on our quest. Is this the fastest and most electric wide receiver duo of all time in just a raw speed standpoint of your top 2 receivers both being able to fly like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle?
Well, they probably have to be in the conversation. I haven't looked at it historically at all, but they're certainly dynamic, and they're going to pressure any defense they're up against. And they make you defend everything. I mean, they're going to throw screens behind the line of scrimmage. They're also going to throw the ball, 30 yards down the field and everywhere in between. So They really like to stress the defense. A lot of play action, which they do extremely well, which isn't a surprise with, Coach McDaniel coming from, San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan system. But they're a handful. There's a reason they've put up, as many points as they have. They've got a handful of dynamic players.
Outside of turnovers, for all the people listening, what is the one thing that you will focus on the most on a week-to-week basis, that if the Browns can take control of that, it will allow them to be the team that we want them to be this year in terms of wins and losses?
Yeah, we have a bunch of proprietary metrics that I won't share. I mean, there's one in particular that we tend to look at that we really feel like drives performance and really explains wins or losses as well as anything else. But I think one way to think about it is big plays. And big plays, the way I use the term big plays may be a little different than what you're used to. So to me, big plays is not something where it's just, you gained 15 yards or more or 20 yards or more. Sometimes people have different definitions for a big play in the run game versus a big play in the pass game. Sure, it is some of those things are big plays. But you mentioned turnovers. Turnovers are the biggest of the big plays.
Yep.
There are, 58-yard field goals to win a game are big plays.
Massive.
40-yard punt returns are big plays. Converting a 3rd and 7 is a big play. Converting a 4th and 1 is a big play. So they're, even if you only gain the 1 yard. So they're all, I think big plays, at least in our context, are all sort of shapes and sizes. And if you can win those big plays, and maybe they're just the highest leverage plays in the game, but that's probably the best way to think about it. You're going to win the game by and large. I mean, there are a lot of other plays that happen during the game, and it's not that those don't matter, but it's in those highest leverage moments that if you can win more often than you lose, you're typically going to come out on top. So, we know, playing really good situational football, whether it's in the red zone, whether it's on money downs, which is, 3rd and 4th down, those are the things that, oftentimes really, really drive winning and losing.
Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Appreciate you giving us a little bit of it today. Thanks, pal.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's our Chief Strategy Officer, Paul DePodesta, on the Twisted Tea Hotline. OBM, the official printer partner of your Cleveland Browns. Will you depend on your Browns to win? You can always depend on OBM. They can tackle any size office. Call 216-485-2000. Visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. I have a theory on the Thursday night ratings. We have a Thursday nighter tomorrow night. Have some reaction to that. You'll hear from Jacoby Brissett as well. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And the Bath Authority gives you that bathroom of your dreams in about a day, guys. You can transform that current bathroom you have into a custom bath for a spa-like experience. The Bath Authority makes it a reality for you at a fraction of the cost of the competitors. The Bath Authority is our area's premier bath and shower remodeler. Expert factory-trained installers. Call $500 off right now at 216-220-8399 or go to thebathauthority.com. It's where affordability meets quality. The largest selection of bath projects. They're all made right here in America. You can change your bathroom from outdated to outstanding. Again, guys, in about a day. Superior products with expert installers at thebathauthority.com. 220-830-8399 on that. Now let's head to the podium and Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, your bye week.
You guys done?
It's good. It's good.
Going anywhere?
No.
Kind of off that, Jacoby. You have time to reflect and kind of look back. I know it's a weekend process, but this past week at all, did you have time to think about how well you really have played this first stretch of games?
And some self-scout stuff and stuff with the coaches, but just really been like, honestly, I just been looking forward to getting back out there and just playing again. I kind of hate bye weeks a little bit, so yeah.
And I can imagine because you are playing well. I mean, the team can play better, but when you're playing well, that itch to get out there is even.
Yeah, exactly. And, obviously we won a game last time we were out there, and it's just like, man, just can't wait to go out there and try to get another one and get back to work. So, yeah.
Jacoby, you were with the Dolphins last year. Their defense was a lot better with Brian Flores. What do you see out of them without Flores?
I mean, I still see a really good defense. A lot of the guys are back and with more experience in this defense. Guys playing at a really high level. Obviously, they're winning a lot of games, and they still got a lot of, I think, really playmaker style, game-changing players. And I think they're playing really well still.
You didn't see much of Chubb in the last game, but you expect to see a lot of him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they paid him. They better play him, right? So I would think that he'll play a lot this game.
What about the significance of you going back to Miami, not only because of being there last year, but also just being from there and all that?
I don't care. I just want to go win. Yeah, that's where my focus is. I'm not really into the other stuff.
There's no Jacoby revenge game or anything?
They didn't do anything wrong to me. So, I mean, I'm a little too old to hold grudges if they did. But, nah, it's not my style.
You don't look at their offense, but what do you think of the season 2 that's had?
I mean, obviously being, friends with him and extremely happy to things that he's done this year. And I think he's doing a really good job for what they're asking him to do. Hopefully he doesn't do it on Sunday.
Has he exceeded what you expected from him?
Well, I don't make expectations for people. I mean, he's just playing really good. So, yeah.
What worked so well for you guys in that Bengals game?
I think I think we played really good complementary football in all three phases. And I think we came out with the understanding of the magnitude of that game. I thought we, prepared well. And I think I felt like a little different energy going out of the locker room into the stadium, like for the first snap. And it held true throughout 4 quarters. And I think we played a full 60-minute game. It was our first time, I think, of the year ending the game and taking the knee. And, that's huge to be able to do that in the NFL. Yeah.
When a team like the Dolphins scores so many points and always attacking through the air, is it easy to get caught up in that type of game? Do you want rather control the game with your offense?
I mean, the plan is to do whatever we got to do to score one more point than they do. However that comes, 3-2, whatever it is. I wouldn't, but whatever, just to go out there and win a game. Whatever we need to do on offense to win the game on our side of the ball, I'm sure we're going to do it. And whatever we got to do on defense and special teams on that side of the ball, I think we'll do. And play for 60 minutes. That's all it's going to really come down to.
When you guys do your self-scout from the first 8 games, what were some of the things offensively that you said, hey, we did this well, and we can do even more of this in the final 9 games?
Well, if I tell you that now and they watch this and then they get a scouting report, but I think it showed of how much we've hurt ourselves and how much we have stopped us from scoring touchdowns and converting on third downs and big plays here and there. And I think that was the main key takeaway that I think we took.
Why is carrying momentum from week to week, positive momentum week to week, so difficult in the NFL?
I mean, it's the other team gets paid too. You know, I think there's so many good players in this league and good coaches and obviously good schemes to where it makes it hard. You know, the good teams find a way to do it, but it's definitely hard and so you just got to find a way to do it in practice, you know, and just carry the momentum in practice and have a little bit more juice in practice, have a little bit more focus, a little bit more attention to detail, and hopefully that translates to the game.
Jacoby, people that you know that ask about Nick Chubb, what do you tell them?
I sit there and think because I'm like, it's so many things I can tell you about him. And the thing that it all comes back to is like, it's no surprise, you know. The way he works, I mean, not only the videos that people see that him lifting all these weights, but, you know, every day in practice, he's going to the touchdown. No matter how far we're back, he's running to the touchdown and running back for the next play. To where his success is no surprise. His style of running is no surprise. The things that he can do is no surprise. Obviously, you can't take it for granted because sometimes it's unhuman-like, but then when you get around and you're like, dang, man, like, this is what NFL players should be. This is what a professional athlete should be. And he does it day in and day out, no matter the circumstances. He's just that guy that you want in your locker room.
How much, what's Amari meant to you, and how much better of a quarterback has he made you?
I mean, a lot. I mean, his when you talk about guys that understand football and hard worker and smart and guys that you want in your locker room and you listen to him talk about, hey, man, this is what I'm thinking, like in the realm of the plan. This is what this DB did versus me last time or this thing and that. You know, he's opened my eyes to so many like different things of trust and things of that nature that the things that he does is incredible. And, you know, obviously fortunate to have him on the team and you know, have him a part of my career. And so, yeah, just looking to make more plays.
Jacoby, I guess Kareem Hunt was emotional after the Cincinnati game, not knowing it would be his last game with the Browns the day before the deadline. Have you noticed any change in his demeanor now this week, now that he knows he's going to be here?
No, I didn't see him after the game emotional or whatever. So it looks the same to me.
When you have a game like that against the Bengals where it's like complimentary football on all three sides of the ball, what are the conversations like after a game like that to try to keep that momentum going and keep it connected?
I think the main thing that Coach said was this is what it could look like if we do this consistently, you know, and I think players understood that, and I think guys really looked at it as, wow, like, that is right. Like, we did do this right. We did correct this from the week before, or the week before that. And this is how it all comes together. Because all of our plans kind of play off each other. Like, what we do on offense is predicated on what the defense thinks and stuff like that, and special teams, so forth. So I think guys kind of saw it all come to fruition, and, you know, hopefully just doing that again.
Jacoby, you talked about the fact that you guys imposed your will in the middle of that during the Bengals game, and my question is, so, like, how do you do that again? How do you get yourselves in that place where you can do that?
I think it's finding the spot. It's always a spot in the game where either the offense or the defense imposes their will, and it kind of is the turning point, quote unquote, of the game. And in the middle of that game, like I said, like I felt like we started to impose our will and started to do things at our leisure. Yeah, it's the, for one, you got to be able to get to that point in the game, but and maybe it's the first play of the start of the game. Maybe it's the second half. It's you never know when it's going to come. That's the crazy part. It's just like you never know when that play is going to be the spark, you know.
When you talk about the magnitude of that Bengals game, the fact that you won it and the way you guys won it, is there a lot more hope and optimism heading into the second half of the season because of that?
I don't think it's hope. I think it's just more of like understanding. Like, listen, we got the whole season ahead of us. We got a big game coming up this Sunday. Let's go try to do the same thing again, you know, and play good football in all three phases of the game. And then at the end of the game, see where we're at.
Jacoby, for as much as Amari has meant to this offense in the past game, I mean, Donovan, too, just seems to have that tendency to make big catches. I mean, how much does that help you as a
it just makes you want to give them more, you know, and it's I think, like, like Donovan is just like, he's just so quiet. I mean, him and Amari are kind of like the same. Like, they don't talk. Like, and you look up and you're like, dang, like, Donovan had 80 yards. Like, he almost had 100 yards. You know, it's just like, and he's making big catch after big catch after big catch. And, you know, it dates back to, like, the first game of the season. Like, I just always think of that big third down catch that he had, like, and the ball was behind him and just catches with his hands, plucks it out of the air. He just has done that for us all year, you know, and obviously finding ways to get him more involved and get him more balls. But, you know, I think he's been playing really well. So.
I mean, like you said, demeanor-wise, him and Amari are pretty similar. I know David doesn't talk a lot. I mean,
Oh, yeah, it's literally all of them are the same. It's crazy.
In the NFL, I mean, receivers are a pretty mercurial kind of big personality.
Yeah.
To have a room of guys who aren't that, just what's that like?
It's different for sure. But they find their ways to give me like subtle jabs where I kind of understand their personalities. But to have all three of them not talk is kind of bizarre.
What about the younger guys? Do you feel like
30?
The upside is really good the second half of the season for David Bell, Michael Wood?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think for those guys to be able to, hey, look, let's see what I've done in practice, training camp. I mean, they've been going since last year's season. You know, the bye week was probably their first little break. And see where, you know, they fit in, where we fit them in the offense, and see the plays that, you know, we're asking them to make. And the good thing, obviously, David Bell's getting more. He has got more of the player time and has made more of the plays from those two. But
come back,
continuing ways to grow and help them out, and I think they're becoming more professional to where they understand it themselves, and excited for them.
You're up.
That dude's been everything the doctor ordered, on and off the field. Great leader. Love hearing him talk. Lots of insight on the football team.
He's awesome.
Great.
I love Jacoby Brissett. I love seeing him succeed. I hope that he is in this capacity with us for a long time.
I'd love
if we need him, you know, hopefully Deshaun Watson is going to come in and be exactly what the Browns expected him to be, or what he was the last time we saw him play football. But Jacoby Brissett is a backup that feels to be a backup of great consequence and one who fits what we do so well.
This from a couple of things NFL-wise of relative big note. Josh Allen day to day. McDermott playing some games. We'll see if he plays. I saw Orlovsky this morning saying, I think he's going to sit. They have to take care of him. Remember, we play them in 2 weeks.
The week after. That's right.
So theoretically, it could be Case Keenum against Minnesota.
And then a Case Keenum revenge tour. Case Keenum against Minnesota. Case Keenum against the Browns.
That's true. Little revenge tour potentially there.
Maybe they play Denver the week after that. Case Keenum against Denver.
There's a lot of them. Jim Irsay to Bob Kravitz of The Athletic. This is unbelievable.
He's talking
to me specifically.
Directly.
He might as well be saying, Bo, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard that we're tanking.
Bo?
telling Bob Kravitz on Tuesday night. That's BS, except he actually said it. We're in this thing, 9-7-1 to get us in. No question about it. We're not tanking this season. Whoever says these things,
Bo,
that we're not playing Matt because of an effort, that's all BS. Of course, he said it. That's not true. We're going to do what it takes to win.
I don't know who people think we are. They don't know us. We don't tank in Indianapolis, Bo Bishop.
Oh, yeah, you do. You did the other time.
I think you're doing
Curtis
it right
Painter.
now.
I think you're doing it right now, and I think you did it then. I think it worked.
Well.
Yeah, it worked.
One thing he said in that was true. I know how to build teams, and it's get lucky and get Peyton Manning, and then get yourself in position to get Andrew Luck, and now they're going to try and do it again.
Yeah.
And by the way, if he pulls it off, tip of the cap.
One other little news note.
Yep.
Can't wait for tomorrow from John Keim. The D.C. Attorney General's
I
office
saw this.
emailed reporters regarding a press conference tomorrow where Attorney General Karl Racine will make a major announcement related to the Washington Commanders.
No, there was no coincidence about any of this.
Nope.
Irsay's comments, this
Irsay knew.
Irsay knew this stuff from last week. All of a sudden, we're selling the team, and now indictments. Yeah, this all adds up. There was no way Snyder was selling that team unless it became impossible to keep it. Browns fans, you can enter for a chance to win season tickets for the 2023 season from Sugardale and your local Meijer. 2 lucky fans will have a chance to compete on the field during halftime, November 27th, for the ultimate prize. Text Browns to 55678 to enter today. We will meet the Miami Dolphins coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Fan base of the NFL. Join the Browns season ticket member waitlist today for the best chance of securing tickets for all home games in future seasons. Don't miss out. Go to clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to reserve your spot today. Real quick before we meet the Dolphins, my theory on Thursday Night Football. So the ratings are down in general compared to last year when it was split between the network and NFL versus Amazon streaming.
It's on streaming.
Of course. But I think what you can see when you look at the ratings is a direct correlation. Like, when it was on network and it was on NFL network, you could stumble into it. There are a lot of people who still look at a guide and,
Sure.
oh, NFL football, boom. If these games aren't good, no one's watching. For example, last week was 7.9 million. That's paltry.
So do you think
for the
Amazon's
NFL.
pissed?
I don't know. 7.8 was Cardinals Saints, so that's not a great game. Yet their high water marks, Chiefs and Chargers, was 13. Bengals and Dolphins was 11.7. So they're down to network regardless. But it's almost a 2 million difference. So you've got 3 weeks ago it was Cardinals Saints at 7.8, 10 million on Baltimore, Tampa Bay, 7.9 on Eagles and Texans. If it's bad, you're not seeking it out. In the old days, if it was bad, you might stumble in for a little bit because you're bouncing around, and that's the difference.
It's on your channels. I mean, even like, and I think that going to just an app affects obviously a certain demographic that is not as technologically savvy. But
no
like,
question.
For example, Pedro's in town, not Pedro, and he can work his setup, but like he's like, I couldn't get from app to app on your TV, and they're literally all right there. But if it's not the interface you're used to, it doesn't matter. You don't know what you're looking at. So I think it's hard to find that game for people who are not as technologically savvy, and you're not going to stumble into it unless you're on the Amazon. You click on the Amazon Prime app, or if you have like my Sony smart TV on Thursday nights, the top banner is Amazon Prime, so you can just one click right into it without going into the app. But depending, you could have an older one. Some people run it through an Xbox. Some people run it through their game console, or they'll run it through like a Roku, and it's might not be that easy. You don't have to click onto Amazon Prime Video and then get in there.
Well said. All right, let's meet the Dolphins, buddy. 6-3 on the season, tied for second in the East.
Yeah, 6-3 on the season. They have won 3 in a row. They have scored 30 points in back-to-back games. Tua has thrown for more than 300 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions in back-to-back games. Quarterback rating's been over 130 in back-to-back games. They are 6-0 in games started and finished by Tua. Tyreek Hill leads the NFL in receiving. In fact, it's the most receiving yards anybody has ever had through the first 9 games of the season, 1,104. On pace for an NFL record, 2,085 yards. Will be the first person ever to surpass the 2,000 mark. Megatron back had 16 games at 1964. So Megatron's per game pace actually that year was higher that season. He's already got 5 games of 140. He's number 1 in the league. Oh, yeah, Jalen Waddle. He's 5th in the NFL with 812 yards, 6 touchdowns of his own. Among the top 30 receivers in terms of yardage, he's at 17.3 yards a carry. That is the most. He himself, 80-plus in 4 straight games. He's got 408 and 3 touchdowns the last 4. You look at the last 4 for Tyreek Hill, he's got 580. So doing quick math really quick here, in the last 4 games alone, they have combined for 988 yards and 4 touchdowns. 988 yards, 2 people. They go out, they trade for Jeff Wilson, and Depot was talking earlier about how tough it is to come in. Jeff Wilson in his Miami debut played 2 more snaps than Raheem Mostert. He played 28 to his 26. He outrushed him 9 times for 51 yards, 5.7 to carry, 3 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown, a 10-yarder there. He's going to be a stud, so they can run it, they can throw it. Gesicki, who is down this year, 22 catches, 238 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This is a guy who they signed to the franchise tags, who's coming off of back-to-back seasons of over 700 yards in 20 and 21. So that's who they are on offense. Tua, as we've said, leads the NFL in touchdown percentage, quarterback rating, QBR, yards per attempt, yards per completion, air yards per attempt, third down quarterback rating. He is on the season 70% passer, 1,980 yards, 15 touchdowns, only 3 picks. The last 2 weeks, 300-plus, 3-plus touchdowns, 135-plus rating, no interceptions. He hasn't been sacked in 2 of the last 3 games. Now, one little interesting bit, he's got 12 of his touchdowns have come in 3 games, 6 against Baltimore, 3 the last 2 weeks, 3 touchdowns in the other 4 games. Now, really 3 and a quarter game because he got knocked out against Cincinnati, so we have to hope for that. Their line, they went out and they got Teron Armstead, who's the number 20 tackle at Pro Football Focus, a 3-time Pro Bowler. They brought in Connor Williams, who was the number 4 center at Pro Football Focus, who was a former second-round pick of Dallas. And so their line, some new starters there. And then defensively, Christian Wilkins, the former first round out of Clemson, is a beast up front in the middle. They've got Emmanuel Ogbah. They got Jalen Phillips, who had 8.5 sacks last year. They just traded for Bradley Chubb. Melvin Ingram was the AFC Defensive Player of the Month for September. He's there. They've got some linebackers in Landon Roberts and Jerome Baker who run around. They got Xavier Howard, who was a Pro Bowl corner, who has the most interceptions in the league over the last few years. Javon Holland is an excellent safety. They're good at all 3 levels. But you can score the football on this team. Their number 2 corner, Kader Kohu, is an undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M Commerce. You have an opportunity to get at him. So that's who they are. Complete team, well-coached, well-executed, fun to watch on offense. Hold on to your seats.
It's going to be a fun one. Rumpke Waste Recycling, family-owned and operated. Whether you join as a customer or employee, you'll become part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more. So much more to come. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And catch the Browns preview show tonight from 7 to 8 on the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network. Linebacker Sione Takitake. The voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, joined Ken and Gerard on the program tonight. On Thursday's show, loaded up. Amari will be on. Armando Salguero, who I enjoy thoroughly. Yes, sir.
Yep. I'm just excited.
Oh,
This point,
I
that
thought
was
maybe you
more
had
just a-
something.
no,
I
just-
thought you were very. I thought there was something else.
I just have a great.
It's a nice. I love Armando. I like how he usually rubs it in that he's in some sort of
1 minute.
pristine conditions weather-wise.
Well, maybe not this time. He
I
might
had
have
to
to-
double check. I was like, "Are you good?"
Yeah, he's going to be in the middle
He's
of,
like,
the,
"I'm
of the
great."
muck.
He's great. Of course, he's great.
Of course, you're great.
It's fantastic.
It's Armando.
Whatever.
So good. Absolutely. All right, the next level's next. We're back tomorrow. Cleveland Browns Daily, 8:50 ESPN Cleveland.